Chinese Premier Li Keqiang is in Brussels. He made the remarks in a speech at the EU-China Business Summit, emphasizing China's stance on multilateralism and strengthening ties between China and Europe. Now, Europe has been China's largest trading partner, and China has been Europe's second largest trading partner. With more and more cooperation between the two sides, there are still, however, some disagreements. How can we build a better framework to boost bilateral communication? I'm pleased to be joined from Munich by Dr. Sabine Stricker-Kellerer, arbitrator of the China International Economic and Trade Arbitration Commission, or CETAC, and Dr. Jing Men, director of the EU-China Research Center at the College of Europe in Brussels. Welcome to the show, ladies. Dr. Stricker-Kellerer, now you have been working on trade between China and European countries. From what you have seen, how is the market looking at the moment? Are things progressing, stagnant, or going backwards?
Thank you very much, Liu Xin, for having me on your show. I'm very pleased to be here. We see a visit by Premier Li Keqiang, which is very welcome in Europe and in Germany. We see that he meets partners with a mature partnership where we can, as you say, talk difficulties and differences and also seek common solutions. So how is the business community looking at it at the moment? I think my co-speaker will tell you more about the most recent EU Chamber of Commerce survey on businesses. But when I listen to Premier Li Keqiang and our European leaders, we can see that they're all on the road to improving relationships. And our question is, what does it mean for business? I think we talk a lot about innovation, and that also in climate change and how we can improve that. And we have different strategies and different industrial policies. And I can elaborate if you want, but I think we will find a common ground here, even though the systems differ.
Now, Dr. Men, now what?
So if you look at the industrial policies.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Go ahead. No, I mean,
Okay.
if you want to look at the industrial policy, that was the key topic yesterday when Li Keqiang visited Berlin. The key topic was innovation. Germany has the program Industry 4.0, which is a platform. It's basically a platform for the companies, so it's not a top-down policy, it's a platform. China has its policy Made in China 2025, which is the government deciding top-down what the business should look like, what business segments should be prioritized, and how the world market leaders should be developed. At the same time, Li Keqiang said that in China we have a boom of grassroots innovation. So that's very similar to Germany. It's into Europe. We have startups, we have startup companies who want to cooperate. So if we look from bottom up, we have a very similar situation for companies competing for the best know-how and the best knowledge. And when we look at top down from the government, we might have a different structure how we deal with it.
Now, Dr. Men, one of the top priorities of Chinese Premier Li Keqiang and German Chancellor Angela Merkel's meeting is to talks on China-EU investment agreement to enrich bilateral ties. Now, how are the talks going so far, and how will China and the EU benefit from this agreement?
For bilateral investment agreement, up till now there has been 13 rounds of negotiations between the EU and China, but there are still a lot of substances that need to be settled down. Therefore, although having been negotiated between the two sides for several years, up till now there is still no bilateral investment agreement. But on the other hand, we know that between the EU member states and China, currently, of course, due to the Brexit reason, we have still, let's say, 27 member states, but most of them have bilateral investment agreement. Most of them are outdated to a certain degree because now Chinese investment has been developing so rapidly in recent years, particularly for 2016, about 40 billion euros have been invested from Chinese side to the European side, which made about 70% increase compared to the previous year. And therefore, for the European Union and China both realize that it's really necessary to have an upgraded overall comprehensive investment agreement between the EU and China level, particularly after the Lisbon Treaty that has been concluded in the EU. And that's why now they are still committed to the negotiation.
Dr. Stricker-Kellerer, now we've heard Dr. Mun just telling us China's investment last year in the EU amounted to some 40 billion euros, and that's, if my statistics is correct, that's 5 times as much as the EU's investment in China. Some have accused China of obtaining high-end technology from European countries through its investments, while simultaneously raising the bar for European investment in China. What do you think of this accusation, and how do you think the investment between the two sides can be lessened?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not very fond of numbers. The sizes of our two countries are so totally different that the numbers on investment is not really what drives me. What drives me much more is the question, do we really have a fair and equal playing field, or do we have an asymmetric market field? That's exactly what you refer to. And we want to be a very, very open market. We want to continue to be very open for Chinese investments, and we're hoping that China is so as well. You mentioned that China might have deteriorated in opening up its market. I think that's probably not the point I would make. I would say its gradual opening did just not speed up. We had the opening since admission to WTO, and thereafter we had even more opening. But somehow it slows down, and we know the worries. We know the questions European companies are asking, which are basically under the Made in China 2025 policy. Does really China want to protect its own industry more than its foreign industry? Does it want to create national champions before the European companies have the opportunity for fair market competition?
Now,
I want to come back what Li Keqiang said yesterday in Berlin.
Briefly,
if I may
please.
just add that, because that was a really, really very interesting point.
Please.
He said that China made progress. First, that they established a negative list for investment, which we understand, which should be reduced and reduced, which means the businesses where I cannot invest in. So this is a government policy. Again, it's top-down driven. But he also mentioned that China has to do it slowly, and China does not want monopolies.
Okay, it's a good point.
I liked that very much, because this is a legal term.
Let me come to...
It's after you enter the market.
Sure.
After you freely entered the market, you will then be subject to anti-competition and anti-monopoly laws.
Let me put the final
give
question
its
to
decisive
Dr.
role
Mun,
in that
please.
process.
We have really running out of time, but Dr. Mun, I want to hear your quick response to what we have been discussing. Exactly what are the obstacles to creating more balanced bilateral investment between China and the EU? Very briefly, please.
Well, indeed, from the EU side, there are quite a lot of concerns, particularly about the level playing field, about market access in China. Indeed, in China, there is a negative list that some of the sectors which are not fully open to the European investors. But as you just discussed, that China takes a more incremental space, and of course, it takes into consideration of the current situation of Chinese industrial level, Chinese technological level, and the level of the enterprises running in the market environment. And that's why this approach, this incremental approach, will still be kept somehow in the future. And of course, from the European side, people hope that this speed can be speeded up, can be faster, so that there will be a more equal cooperation between the two sides.
Thank you very much, ladies. I have to leave it there. That was Dr. Sabine Stricker-Kellerer, arbitrator of the China International Economic and Trade Arbitration Commission, and Dr. Jing Mun, director of EU-China Research Center at the College of Europe in Brussels.